Hi, it's me Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe my channel and visit my Patreon page, link in the description.
Sam looked at the price and swallowed hard. He was short, way short of having enough money. He shook his head and whispered to Toshi, "It's too much." She whispered back, "I can lend you some. But it will cost you." "Cost me what?" "My chores for a month." "A month?" "It's for Vanessa. Isn't she worth it?" "Deal." The twins paid for the necklace, and the sales girl wrapped it up in a very pretty box. The twins then caught up with their cousins at the park. They walked around the lake, and Toshi told Aiko and Kyoko that Sam had to find something for his girlfriend back home. There was some giggling and kidding. The following Saturday, the twins and Aiko were on a flight to the States. It wasn't first class this time, but they were comfortable, and they had 3 seats together. Aiko was the first to fall asleep, and the twins chatted quietly for a while. Toshi finally asked, "Did you find the special things I packed in your suitcase?" "Yeah. I wish you hadn't done that. Because sleeping in the same room as Taro, I had to hide them." "Sorry, but I figured that you might like something." "I would have. But sorry." Toshi curled up next to him, put her head on his shoulder, and fell asleep. Sam's mind was working, so there was no sleep for him. They changed planes in Los Angeles and then flew directly to Washington. They were met at the airport by Masumi, Miyuki, Vanessa, Vanessa's mom and dad, and the Baker family, Mom, Dad, Amy, Beth, and Charlie, who would be Akio's host family. There were the usual hugs all around, and the introduction of Akio to everyone. Toshi and Vanessa hugged like long-lost sisters. But the hug Sam got from Vanessa was even more intense. And she whispered, "You'll never know how much I missed you," and then openly kissed him on the cheek. He just turned red. Akio whispered to Toshi in Japanese, "So, that's the famous Nessa?" "Hi," Toshi said. "I'll write you too." "English only," Miyuki said to Toshi and Akio. "Sorry, Aunt Me," Toshi said. Akio said goodbye to the twins, Masumi, Miyuki, Vanessa, and Vanessa's parents, and left with the Bakers. Everyone would get back together at the Bakers early in the week. The seating for the trip home was the same as it was going to the airport 2 months ago. And the hand-holding wasn't as secretive as it was before. They arrived back at the house and unloaded the luggage. Everyone sat around and talked for a few minutes. Then Miyuki suggested that they go out for dinner, and she took them to one of the better restaurants not far from home as her treat. Afterwards, Vanessa's parents dropped Masumi, Miyuki, the twins, and Vanessa off at the twins' house and told Vanessa not to stay long, as the twins were probably tired. Masumi and Miyuki retired to the kitchen and let the kids have the den so that they could talk. Sam sat on the overstuffed chair, and Vanessa and Toshi sat on the couch. Vanessa was full of all kinds of questions as to what Japan was like, what they did, etc. After about an hour of this, Toshi excused herself, and Sam moved over next to Vanessa. "So, did you miss me?" he asked. "Yes." "Did you miss me?" He didn't answer right away, but just kissed her and held her. Then finally said no. She pulled back from him, and he was grinning. She took his head in her hands and kissed him again. He finally pulled back, took a small package from his pocket, and handed it to her. "What's this?" "Nothing. Nothing. Well, almost nothing. Just a little something for your birthday." "Open it." She carefully opened the wrapped box and removed the lid. She looked at its contents, looked at Sam, and started crying. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. It's just so sweet." "Don't cry," Sam said, wiping away the tears. "I'm sorry, but I did really miss you. Put it on me." "Sure." Sam took the necklace out of the box, opened the clasp, and said, "I'm not good at this." "Are you good at this?" she said as she kissed him again. They heard a noise at the door. Looked, and there stood Toshi, watching them and grinning. She said, "Are you two through?" After a short pause, Sam said, "Sis, will you help me with this necklace? You look like you're doing a good job all by yourself." "I can't get the clasp." Toshi walked up behind Vanessa, took both ends of the necklace, and fastened the clasp. All she said was, "Boys." Vanessa asked, "What does it say?" "It's your name in katakana." "That is so sweet." Vanessa looked at the clock and said, "I'm in trouble. Look at the time. Your mom and dad know you're here. I don't think they'll be that mad. And Toshi and I will walk you home." "All right. But we better get going. I'll tell mom what we're doing. And that we'll be right back." Toshi and Sam walked Vanessa home. It was only 2 blocks. Sam got a goodnight kiss just before her mom opened the front door and said, "A little late, young lady?" "Sorry, Mom. We just got carried away talking." "All right. Forgiven this time." "You haven't seen Toshi and Sam for a long time." "What's this?" she said, touching the necklace. "Just something Sam brought me back from Japan." "Very nice. You did thank him, didn't you?" "Yes, ma'am." She did. Sam answered for her. "Good. Well then, say goodnight. You can visit more tomorrow," Vanessa's mom said as she turned and walked back into their house. Vanessa gave Sam a quick kiss and said, as she followed her mother into the house, "See you tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Sam replied. "See you, Nessa," Toshi added. The twins walked back home in silence. As they reached the front steps, Toshi said, "Are you glad to be home?" "Sure. You were sure glad to see Nessa." "Yeah." School started 2 weeks later. Akio was all settled in and began enjoying school in the States. And Sam and Vanessa became an item. Christmas was coming up and Grandma Gifford was coming to visit for the holiday. Sam was at a loss as what to get Vanessa, but Toshi was helping him. And they settled on another necklace with a matching bracelet. Vanessa also got Sam a bracelet. A little planning on Toshi's part? Maybe. A very sad time. A few weeks after Christmas, just after Saturday breakfast, the telephone rang and Toshi answered it. She turned to her mother, handed her the phone, and said, "It's Oda Sachiko, and she's crying." With a little trepidation, Masumi took the phone and said, "Sachiko." She listened for a minute, her face flushed, and she started to cry. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Sobo, grandfather, died." "What?" "No." And Toshi started crying. "Please go get Miyuki and your brother." Toshi headed to the kitchen, where Miyuki and Sam were. Miyuki saw Toshi first and that she was crying. She asked, "Honey, what's wrong?" Between her sobs, Toshi was able to get out. "Sobo died." Miyuki ran to Masumi. Sam dropped the dish he was putting away and the tears started. "He started when?" "How? Why?" Toshi just looked at him with the tears flowing. Sam ran to her and just held her. They cried together for a while. Finally, hand in hand, they walked to where Masumi and Miyuki were. Masumi looked at them and said, "Kids, sit down." The twins sat and Masumi said, "Sobo died last night. He had a heart attack and no one could help him." And she went back to talking on the phone to her sister, Sachiko. The twins started crying again and just sat close to each other. Sam had been very close to his Sobo, especially after their summer there. And Toshi could feel the sorrow building up in him. When Masumi had finished talking, she said, "We're going to go to Japan for the funeral, and we'll be gone about a week. I'll tell you more later. But right now, I have to call Akio and tell her." Masumi called the Bakers and Mrs. Baker answered. Masumi said, "Helen, this is Masumi. I have some very bad news for Akio. But I thought that I'd better tell you first. Her grandfather Matsushita died last night." "Yes, it will be hard on her. We're all going to Japan for the funeral and we should be back in about a week." "Yes, have her come over so we can tell her." "Thank you very much. Akio is out right now, but as soon as she comes home, they will have her come over." "Are you two all right?" "Not really. I loved Sobo," Sam said. "I know, honey. But these things happen. We all loved Sobo and we'll all miss him." Sam got up and ran up to his room. Masumi looked at Toshi and without a word, Toshi followed him upstairs. He was standing at his window, staring out at the street. Toshi walked up behind him, put her hands on his shoulders, he turned, and they hugged for a long time. She whispered in his ear, Want me to call Nessa? Yes. Toshi went to the phone in Masumi's room and called Vanessa. Hi, Nessa. It's Toshi. No. We have a family emergency. My Sobo Matsushita died. I'm sorry, my grandfather Matsushita died. Yes. I think he could really use your company right now. Great. I'll tell him. See you in a few. Bye. Toshi went back to Sam's room, and he was back starting out the window. She walked up to him and whispered, Nessa will be over in a few minutes. He turned, looked at her, and said, Thanks. A few minutes later, they heard the doorbell and Miyuki answer it. It was Vanessa, and they heard her say that she was so sorry to hear about Sobo Matsushita. And she asked where the twins were. Miyuki told her that they were probably in Sam's room and to go on up. They heard Vanessa come upstairs, and she stopped at Sam's door and said a simple, hi. Sam looked at her, with tears still streaming down his cheeks, and said, hi. Toshi also said just hi. She walked over to Toshi and gave her a hug, then turned to Sam, put her arms around his neck, gave him a long hug, and said, I'm so sorry, you two. I know how much you loved him. What can I do? Sam whispered back, just be here. Toshi walked over and hugged them both, then turned and walked out of Sam's room, leaving Sam and Vanessa alone. She went downstairs to be with her mother, and Aunt Me Sam and Vanessa just sat together, with Vanessa trying to comfort him. Finally, he said, I'm sorry that I'm such a crybaby. Don't worry about that. You loved your grandfather very much. And there's nothing wrong with crying about losing him. I cried when I lost my grandfather. I didn't know. It was a year or so before I met you and Toshi. Oh, I'm sorry. They heard the doorbell and Aiko's voice when Miyuki let her in. From what they then heard, it was apparent that Masumi had told her. It sounded like she screamed and fainted, as they heard everyone downstairs rushing around to help her. Sam said to Vanessa, I think we should go downstairs. Vanessa got up and helped Sam up. He hugged her again. They walked downstairs just in time to see Miyuki and Masumi helping Aiko into a chair. Sam knelt down next to Akio and said in Japanese, everything will be fine. We're here for each other. And we have good friends for support. Akio looked at Sam and tried to smile a little. Vanessa whispered to Toshi, what did he tell her? Just that, everything will be fine. We're here for each other. And we have good friends for support. Toshi looked at Vanessa and gave her a little smile. He's really a very sensitive person, isn't he? More than you know. Once everyone had finally calmed down a little, Miyuki said that she had called her office and had been able to get hardship flights for them tomorrow to Japan. And since Sam and Toshi had never been to a Shinto funeral, Masumi explained a little about it. She told how there is an intense period of mourning called Kichifuda that lasts for only one day. There will be a Shinto priest there to perform the necessary rituals. Then, there is Katsuage, where the ashes are gathered and placed in an urn. That urn is then placed in a shrine for the service by the priest. Most, but not all of the ashes, are buried at the grave site. The ashes that aren't buried are given to close family members to place at home shrines. And that is called bunkatsu.
Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.